Today, I'm going to show you how to help your adult kids buy a home without wrecking your own retirement. And I get asked this question all the time. You've got people, clients of mine have kids who are in their 20s or 30s. And the biggest concern is, how are kids going to buy a home these days? Real estate is so expensive. The challenge that you have is if you help them too much, you might run the risk of derailing your own financial plan. So today I'm going to show you how you can help the kids, but also not worry about running out of money in retirement or having to go back to work. So the first thing you need to do is you have to assess your own situation. Before doing anything, you need to survey your own financial plan, and you need to look at the plan and find out if you can actually afford to do this, if the plan supports it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to use Steve and Gina today. They're named after clients who I work with. They're in their early 60s, and they've got adult kids, Taylor and Jackson. Taylor's a she, 28 years old. Both Taylor and Jackson have graduated college, and they have fantastic jobs. But the problem is, real estate is so expensive that it's hard for Taylor and Jackson to be able to come up with enough money for the down payment. So mom and dad, my clients, Steve and Gina, came to me and they said, okay, is it possible for us to do this? And the first thing that we did is we jumped into their own financial plan and we said, okay, you guys are a few years away from retirement here. They want to live on about $100,000 a year in retirement. Plus, they want to be able to travel and spend about $20,000 a year on travel. We ran that travel expense all the way out till age 80. We're showing life expectancy out to age 95. And here's what their plan supports. We used very conservative growth rates in retirement of only 5.5%. I think they're going to do better than this. Obviously, no guarantee, but we used conservative growth rates. And we're showing that if they execute to the plan, they're going to have plenty of money left in their late 90s here. Of course, before we pop the champagne and start high-fiving and hugging, we're going to stress test this, because if we know anything about markets, it's that markets never give us 5.5% or any straight line return. So we're going to run this through 1,000 randomly generated scenarios just to make sure that they're good. And what we found was that in all 1,000 scenarios, they did not run out of money. In fact, if their confidence zone, if they were as high as 82%, we'd say they're in the confidence zone. In fact, they're at 100%, which is an A+. Most people go, 82, huh? When I was in school, and 82 was a B. And I don't want my retirement to be a B. And we say, don't worry. The reason why is that this Monte Carlo assessment has looked at such wild scenarios. There was one here where they actually had $8 million left at the end of life. And another one where the bad case here, where they only had 3.9 million left with a median case of 5.5 million. Bottom line, Steve and Gina are in great shape. So that's step one when you go through this assessment, is you got to make sure that your plan is rock solid first. In my former career as a firefighter, we were always trained, we have to put our mask and breather on first. We have to put our personal protective equipment on first before we can be any good at rescuing other people. And it's the same thing in financial planning. I take a lot of what I learned from firefighting and apply it to financial planning because it's basic, but it's true. So Steve and Gina were in good shape. So what we looked at was, all right, what if they took money out? And first, they have a taxable brokerage account. We'll get into which accounts should you take money out from to do this. But the big picture is you have to solve for, can your financial plan support this? And what we found was if they took $450,000 out of their brokerage account, you can see here that over their lifetime, that distribution is going to cost them nearly $1.7 million. The reason why? There's taxes to get at the money, and there's also the opportunity cost of not having the growth compounding on those investments. So it's going to cost them about $1.7 million to give Taylor the down payment on the home. So what does that mean in terms of the context of their plan? Again, we stress tested it to take a look. Here's the interesting news. Even though it cost them a lot of money lifetime, the probability of not running out of money is still very, very high at 100%. What you see though right away was The good and the bad scenarios, those numbers, those dollar amounts have decreased. So there's less money to leave the kids at the end. But the bottom line is their plan can support this. So next we started to explore, okay, that's good. But where's the best place to get money from? Should they take it from the taxable brokerage account? Should they take it from their IRA? And so next, we looked at taking it from the IRA. And we found, as you might expect, that the opportunity cost was even greater. And that's because every dollar coming out of the IRA is taxable at ordinary income rates. So there was actually a far greater cost to take money out of the IRA than to take it from the taxable brokerage account. So still, same assessment applies. We wanted to know what's the probability of not running out of money. And the bottom line is they're still at 100% probability of not running out of money. Similar to that last scenario, you can see that the good and the bad numbers are actually going down a little bit, as you would expect. But the bottom line for Steve and Gina, we were able to give them the good news that their plan supported the ability to gift Taylor at least the down payment. And that leads into the other nuances of this decision that I want to talk to you about on the rest of the video. And that is, number one, which accounts are the most efficient and effective to take money from? Number two, how does this impact you from not only a tax perspective, but also an estate planning perspective? Because if they do this for Taylor, now the question is, can they do it for Jackson? Or should they do it for Jackson? And what if Jackson doesn't want to buy a house, for example? Then how do you true it up? How do you make it fair when it comes to the estate planning? And that's really interesting because the distribution for Taylor, that's money that's no longer going to grow in the markets. And so not only does Jackson lose out on the principal that was used when the gift was made, but there's also the opportunity cost, the growth that doesn't count towards him. So anyways, bottom line, you have a lot to think about in the way that you want to do this. But first, you got to start with, can you afford to do this? Once you identify that you can, the next question is how. And so I want to talk to you about a couple different strategies. If you have cash, that's going to be the most effective way to make the distribution because you don't have to sell anything and you don't have to realize any tax consequences for distributions coming out of an IRA. So cash is the most effective way to do it. The second most effective way is your taxable brokerage account because you're going to pay long-term capital gains on that. And long-term capital gains are lower than ordinary income rates. You're either paying 0, 15%, or 20% in long-term capital gains. Those are lower than what you're paying in ordinary income, which is going to range potentially all the way up to 37%, depending on income. Most retirees find themselves in the 15% capital gains rate. That's federal. And when it comes to state, your state rate is going to apply depending on what state you live in. California, it's all the way up to 13.2. So bottom line, you have to identify which account you're going to take it from. And for some folks, it's a combination of cash, taxable brokerage, and IRA. But then the issue comes into play of timing. And what I mean by that is every year, at least for this year, you're allowed to gift $19,000 and it does not count against your lifetime exemption. So right now you can give $15 million in your life and your kids don't have to pay an estate tax. But the minute you go north of $15 million, now they're going to owe estate taxes of 40%. So if you die and you pass on more than 15 million per person, the kids are going to have to pay 40 cents on the dollar in taxes. Now, for most folks, most of us, we don't have $15 million. So this isn't a big deal, right? But keep this in mind. The estate tax laws change, like the pendulum shifts back and forth. And so right now, that estate tax liability is very high at 15 million per person. It wasn't that long ago where they were talking about lowering it to $1 million, or maybe even making it go away completely, meaning anything you leave at death is going to be taxed. So keep that in mind. But how the rules work today, if you were to gift more than $19,000 in any given year, you have to report it on Form 709. When you go to file your tax return, you're going to report it. There's no tax consequences to you or to the recipient if you make that gift. So there's no problem to gift. In this example, Steve and Gina wanted to gift $450. No problem. No tax consequences on it. They're going to file a Form 709, and it's going to count against that lifetime exemption of $15 million. But another strategy you could consider is, let's say your kids didn't want to buy a house immediately. Let's say it was a few years down the line. Then a strategy I really like is to give the amount away that the IRS lets you give that does not count against your lifetime exemption. This year it's $19,000. So you could give $19,000 to your child and their spouse if you wanted to really help them. So that'd be $38,000. If you're married, your spouse could do that too. So effectively, you could be giving $76,000 per year to your child if they were married, and it wouldn't count against your lifetime exemption. So you do that for a couple of years, that's $152,000. You do it for 4 years, that's $300,000 that you could essentially pass to the next generation to help with the house down payment, and it does not count against your lifetime exemption. So that's a good strategy if you have time on your side. Maybe your kids are a little younger, maybe they don't quite have the job that can support the house, or maybe they don't have the desire for the house yet. But if you have a few years ahead of you to execute the strategy, I really like that strategy. So keep in mind, the same logic applies. Cash is the most tax efficient way to do this. Taxable brokerage would be next. And then qualified retirement like IRAs would be next. I'd prefer you don't dip into your Roth IRA because I'd like to see that compound and grow for you to cover future medical expenses for you, maybe long-term care, or that's just a wonderful bucket of money to be able to leave to the kids and let that compound for 10 years after your passing, totally tax-free. So I'd rather not touch the Roth, but as a last option, the Roth would be my fourth choice in terms of where to get the money from. Okay. Now, when it comes to that taxable brokerage account, there's another strategy in play that's an interesting one to consider. If your kids are in a lower tax bracket than you, let's say you're at peak income earning years, you're a high income earner, let's say your long-term capital gains are 20% rate, and your kids are at a much lower income, you could also consider gifting low basis stock or stock investments. So a low basis stock is something that you bought years ago. It's appreciated greatly in value over the years. And today it's worth a whole lot more. So there's a large tax gain consequence because of the gains on that account. By you making the gift to the child, again, same thing, no tax consequences to you. If it's more than $19,000, you report it on Form 709. But what your children could do is they could sell that investment. The cost basis, what you paid for it, transfers with the investment, so they get the basis too. But if they're in a lower tax bracket, let's say they're in a 0% tax bracket, they essentially could sell the investment and pay nothing in taxes. So you've accomplished your goal of giving them a down payment to help them with the house. But the beautiful thing is, instead of you paying taxes at 20% Fed and whatever your state rate is, now there's a potential, the kids are in a lower bracket, they might pay nothing. So your overall family's lifetime tax bill is reduced by using these strategies. It's perfectly legal. It's just, you have to know the rules. You have to understand the tax code, understand the rules, and use them to your advantage. So bottom line, I hope you found this helpful. You absolutely can help gift the money to get the kids started in life. That's one of the major pain points of people I work with, one of their biggest worries or concerns. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And I just encourage you to do it smartly, do it effectively, try to keep that tax bill as low as possible. Know the rules, have a strategy, have a plan. But first, I implore you, make sure that this works in the context of your overall financial plan. Don't derail your plan. I see it happen all the time. You love your kids. You want to just help them. You want to do what's best for them. But you got to be careful because you got to take care of yourself first. Hope it helps. If you want to talk about this, there should be a link below. You can click to schedule a call with me or any of our advisors. We're happy to help and be a thought partner. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.